Hey, everybody, and welcome to Colin's Backstage Pass, where every week we sit down with some of the area's best venues, best bands, and some notable music folks in the area, and just get a little peek behind the scenes, if you will. And this week, I'm excited to have my buddy Andy Upchurch from Bin 110, who is going to talk to us about all things bourbon and music and all that other kind of good stuff. Andy, good to see you, brother. Thanks for coming out.
Good to see you, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. I'm going to guess you haven't been a bourbon bar owner most of your life. Take us through what got you here.
Okay. Well, I was actually a financial advisor for about 30 years, but I would say roughly 12 years or so ago, Kelly and I made our first trips in Napa Valley. We kind of became wine people. And so did several trips there. We've actually, at this point, we've been to about 100 vineyards in Napa Valley. We actually take people out on trips that we haven't done for a year or so now, but I think that's coming to begin next year. But we decided one day that we would love to own our own little bar. And so this place became available. It wasn't quite the place that we wanted it to be, but it was the location we wanted it to be. And we thought it had the bones and the location to do the things we wanted to do. So we opened that up in November of 2017 and grew from about 3 whiskeys to over 500 now. Our wine list grew from about 12 when we first opened to over 100 now. And the previous owner was doing live music, and we decided to continue that. Tally and I have always been huge live music fans. Tally's actually been to, I would say, close to 300 concerts in her life. Even before she met me, she was really into live music. So it's something that's been a passion for us to have good local live music.
Awesome. Well, obviously, when you first got it, it was not as big as it is today. And when you'd get a band in there on a Friday or Saturday night, 100 people felt like 1,000. So when the opportunity came to expand, what was your, I guess, picture of what it was going to look like? Is it exactly what you wanted it to be, or is it a little different? Or take us through that.
It's pretty close. It's a lot closer to what our original vision was. Our original vision is something like we have now, but just the first spot, the space that we purchased wasn't quite big enough. And so we had to bide our time a little bit, and the space next to us became open. So, it became a possibility for us to take over the entire building and expand and actually decorate it, design it for the way that probably our initial vision was like. I do fondly remember the old days though. The space was about 1,500 square feet, but as far as people space, it was probably on the 750 square foot side.
Right.
And we would have full bands in here, and we would have people on top of people. And it was quite an experience, and it was quite the scene at times, but I think people had a good time with it. But to quote one of my favorite movies, there's a lot more room for activities now, in the new space. We've more than tripled our capacity. So we still put some of those full bands in here, but there's just a lot more tables and chairs for people and a lot more open space for people to stand and enjoy it. So, our capacity probably is closer to 150 to 200 inside, but we have a large outdoor patio too. The music sounds great on as well. So on a really busy night, it's a lot bigger than it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get to the music in a bit, but I got to ask you, because people ask me this all the time. I've been saying 450. Now you just bumped it to 500. So how do you keep up with 500 bourbons, and what's the decision factor in picking those 500 out of the probably thousands that are out there?
That's a question. We've constantly we have been seeking to grow and to get bigger. We already are one of, if not the largest bourbon bar in the Charlotte area. There are a couple of places downtown that also offer some antique whiskeys that bumps their numbers a little higher than ours. But as far as current release whiskeys, we're one of, if not the largest bourbon bar in the area. So it's kind of cool to have here in Lake Norman to have that moniker. We've had people travel from all over the place just to come here for our whiskey. I did visit a whiskey bar in Louisville last year that is one of the largest in the country. They have about 2,000 whiskeys. And I just remember being there and being an executive bourbon steward and knowing my way around a bourbon menu. I remember being a little overwhelmed with 2,000, not really knowing what to do. And I had thought that, what would my customers do if they came in and they had 2,000 to choose from? So at that point, I formed the opinion that maybe 2,000 is too much. But right now I'm cool with growing on past 500. but we have something for everyone, from lower proof to higher proof, from sweeter whiskeys to spicier rye whiskeys. So there's really something for everyone to try and progress through.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how you keep up with that many because you know me, I'm a beer guy. I know you give me grief about my Miller Lite. That's you only keep it for me because I'm probably your only guest that drinks beer. But I love what you did there, and obviously we love the music piece. And I'm just amazed by the transition that you've done with the place. And one other thing on the bar itself, I love the fact that you guys added some food. It is light fare, which is fantastic. What was the thought process behind that? What made you decide on some of those things on the menu?
We always did a little bit of food, Colin, even if it's a smaller place, but it was a very small little quote unquote kitchen in the back and didn't have a lot of capabilities. And we always wanted to offer something a little more. I'm a dinner guy. I mean, I like to go out and have a nice dinner. So this is nothing against full restaurants anywhere, but there are times where people would come here and they were having a great time, but they were like, I need something to eat. I need to go have dinner. And so we've put together a menu that will be constantly changing and adding to and subtracting from, that is substantial enough that if people want to make this a night where, hey, we're just going to order a bunch of small plates and we're going to have flatbreads or we're going to have shrimp cocktail or our pork belly appetizer, we can do that. We don't have to go to a sit down dinner somewhere. So that was in our plans when we expanded. We had more room to put in a full scale kitchen and be able to do things like that.
Well, my favorite of the dessert, it's the brownie with the salted caramel ice cream in the little cast iron tray.
There you go.
Probably next time I'm there, I'm gonna have to order another one now that I've said it out loud. But that's one of my favorites to come there after because you're right. If you Even if you go out to dinner and then you stop by Bin, it's a great little place to have something light on the back end of the night. You might not want to eat at a full meal at 10 o'clock. So I think what you guys have done is fantastic. But
I
real
made a
quick,
decision too. We don't do any fried food. We don't have a fryer.
yeah.
And I'm not anti-fried food. I mean, I love a good bar basket of something, but we don't do any fried food. So a lot of our stuff is at least a little bit healthier for us.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. But hey, real quick on the going back to the bourbons, you've got a very knowledgeable staff and they need to know this stuff. What is the process that your bartenders need to go through to be able to be considered up and ready to talk about this stuff?
So Callie and I both are executive bourbon stewards. So we're actually certified to teach the certified bourbon steward class, which I've done for years now. I've traveled to different clubs, country clubs and venues across the state and in the country actually, and taught those classes. And I actually teach those classes here at Ben 110 periodically. So people sign up and they pay to come and go through a bourbon steward class with me. My staff sits in on all those. So every one of my staff at some point, if they just hired on it, it might have to wait for the next class, but everyone's a certified bourbon steward. So they at least know their way around some of the history of whiskey, how whiskey is made, what makes different whiskeys taste differently. And then from there, working in a place with 500 whiskeys and being around those, you learn a lot of it on the job because you're exposed to it day in and day out.
Sure. And bourbon's not just an old man's drink anymore, right? I'm there enough to know that you've got some 20, 30 somethings in there drinking some bourbons as well. How did you pull that off?
We do bourbon for the last, I mean, for the 8 years we've been open, bourbon's probably been the hottest beverage in the adult beverage segment. And it's waned a little bit in the last year or so, but it's coming off such a high that it's still one of the most popular drinks out there. We've tried to incorporate a lot of cocktails and such with bourbon as well. We have a new one on our menu called Penelope's Kiss, and it's made with berry syrup that we make along with 2 ounces of Penelope bourbon. And it's got a nice foamy top. It's sweet-ish and it's very popular, but it's also an entree to some people that say, oh, I can never drink brown liquor. And they have a taste of that. And they're like, this has brown liquor in it. So there's definitely some ways to introduce people to whiskey before they have to start growing into neat pours of 135 proof stuff.
Right. Gotcha. Well, I know almost every time I'm there, if not every time, the bar is full. You're doing a great job. People are there, especially now that we're coming into the warmer season. I'm sure the outside tables are going to be full. You and I'll be chatting over by the wall over there.
We
Yeah,
will.
we're seeing the success. So I'm so happy that things are going well for you. And again, I'm not a bourbon drinker, but I think you would attest I'm there at least once a week. If that means anything to those watching, you got to get in there and check that part out. But we're not here really to talk about the bourbon as much as the whole music scene.
right?
And I know you mentioned early on that you had bands there when you were in the smaller venue, and obviously that was a tight squeeze. Now you've got a pretty substantial space there, and you can start looking at different bands. What was your goal in making that space for music?
Being larger opens a few more doors for us. I would have some conversations with musicians in the past about how much we would pay or how much we wouldn't pay. And a lot of that had to do with, well, how many feet can I physically fit in this space? Because at the end of the day, I have to be able to sell enough beverages and or food now to be able to support paying a band, plus be able to pay our bills and our staff and hopefully make a little money on the side. When we were much smaller, our budget had to be much smaller for live music. So it wasn't necessarily an indictment on someone's quality or how good they were, how talented they were. It was more of a reality of this is what we can afford to pay based on our size. We're able to bump that up a little more now. So we're able to bring in some bigger bands. We're able to bring in some talent from maybe even outside of the Charlotte area. I've been working on a couple things here recently where I'll be bringing in some people from several states away that I think are really, really good. And we're able to do that now. We're able to support it because the place is big enough to do so. But I did put in a sound system and I've added to that sound system since we opened. 'Cause I'm constantly trying to tweak and get things even a little better. I'd like for musicians to be able to not have to haul all their things in each time, minimal bring in your mics, things of that nature, and be able to plug into a high quality speaker setup so that you can leave those in your car. But really the size helps us bring in some of those larger musician groups over what we used to be able to do.
Sure. And what I love too about the way you've got the setup is you've got the stage on one side and there's tables on the other. And let's be honest, not everybody wants to hear music potentially when they're out, or at least be right on top of the stage. And so I appreciate the fact that you've got a good bit of space on the other side of the bar that people can sit at, still talk and not, have to scream over the music. And then you got the folks that want to stand literally right in front of the band and dance and have a great time where
Right.
volume is not an issue, right? So you can really bring both types of people in week after week. And having it Thursday, Friday, Saturday means you've got a pretty busy schedule. How are you juggling being a bar restaurant owner, keeping up with all the bourbons, and oh, by the way, making sure you got all the right bands there? You
Well,
doing it all, right? Some venues have a restaurant manager, the bar manager, the music manager. You're everybody. You're jack of all trades.
it is, at least for now, it's a 7 day a week job. Every social media post you see, the graphic that you see, I created it. Every post that was made, I posted it. But it's payroll, it's scheduling, it's insurance, it's ordering,
Right.
menu creation, scheduling the bands, dealing with some customers. Most of them are good. Almost all of them are good. But yeah, I'm a one man band to steal a pun from our topic of today when it comes to all those things. So but it is a 7 day a week job. There's something that I do for BIM 110 every day of the week, even though we're closed on Sundays and Mondays.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot. It was Tuesdays are open now too.
We're open on Tuesdays. And actually, this is the advance notice. And we're in the next few weeks, we'll probably be opening up on Sundays, kind of an abbreviated, take advantage of the nice weather or outdoor patio, something 11, 12 o'clock to 6, 7 o'clock in the evening.
Okay. So brunch.
Probably not brunch. Brunch was one of our initial plans.
You know, I
Brunch is
need
a
a good
whole
omelet on
nother
a Sunday
animal.
morning, bro.
What's that?
I need a good omelet on a Sunday morning.
We all do. Brunch is a whole different animal that I discovered once I started diving into that. There's a lot of moving parts of that. There's a huge staff requirement for that. And I'm just not sure that's something that we're suited to, at least now. But we'll still have our kitchen open on those Sundays for light fare. So there'll still be opportunities to have, something to eat, but we'll also have the standard various kinds of mimosas, the spritzes and Bloody Marys and anything else that we have to offer. Plus, at some point, if Sundays take off, you might find a local live musician in here playing guitar or keyboards and singing a little bit in the background.
Awesome. So you mentioned you got some folks coming in from out of town.
Uh-huh.
And you know that I talk about local music all the time. And, I always focus on the local bands. But you've had some names across your moniker there over the last year or so that have been pretty famous. Some reality show contestants.
Mhm.
There's big names that play there at Ben 10. You want to share some of those names with everybody?
Sure. We've had several voice contestants. We'll go back to the OG voice contestant. John Sullivan's been playing here for 7 years.
Oh,
When John was on The Voice a few years back, I forget how many years it is. Once you get to be a certain age, Colin, you just like everything's a few years ago.
that's right.
Even if it was 7 years ago, it was just a
Yeah.
few years
And
ago.
then throw COVID
Uh,
in there and that screws it all up too. I'm with you.
yeah. But Christina Eagle was actually here just this last weekend, and she was in the final 8 of The Voice. She's the highest finishing contestant that has played here that's been on one of those shows. She was on Team Snoop Dogg. To be honest, she should have won, but that's just me. There's a lot that goes into a TV show, and that just wasn't in the cards for her. But she actually posted a video on TikTok from her show here this past weekend, and she sent me a text today, and she'd had over 300,000 views of that video already for her time here at a band. But, Chris Marino comes in from Nashville as well. Cassidy Daniels, very popular locally. She's been playing here for the entirety of the time that we've owned BIM 110. She's a phenomenal talent. So I would say north of 95% of our acts are local, but it's nice to sprinkle in a few people here or there that have some national acclaim. One that I'm working on right now that I'm not going to drop the dime on just yet is super, super good. And
Yeah.
so I'm pretty close to booking that person sometime this year.
Not going to give you an exclusive, huh?
I will when it happens.
To make sure. Well, if she's not from here, I don't know if I can pick her, but we'll figure something out. That's fantastic. Well, I get asked all the time from other bands, how do I get into BIN? Right? You have become one of the spots here at the lake that bands want to play because they know folks are going to come. They know other good quality bands have played there because you're very good about picking the right bands. And I get asked all the time, how do I get in touch with Andy? I'm not throwing your name and number around, obviously, without checking with you first, because I don't want to lose
Right.
connection to you. But, this is an open opportunity now for bands that are out there trying to get in. How would you say if you were them, how to get to you? And what are you looking for?
First and foremost, I would say that Tally and I both are friends of musicians. We're friends of live music. Even if you don't play here, we support what you do. We're empathetic to what you do. It's not an easy job a lot of times, but not everyone will be a great fit for BIM 110. So even if the answer is, I don't think it's a great fit, it doesn't mean that I think you're horrible. It doesn't mean that I think you're not talented. It just means that I just don't think it's a great fit for what we're trying to do. As far as getting in touch with us, both of our social media platforms, whether it be Facebook or Instagram, if you send a message to those, it comes directly to me. If you go to our website and you send a message via the website, it comes directly to me. So there's 3 avenues there. But what I'm really looking for when someone reaches out to me is I want to see some live clips of you. I don't really want to hear a studio track because a studio track could probably make me sound good. And so I want to hear what my customers are going to hear. I want to hear some decent video of you at another venue and hear how you sound live. And so you're welcome to send that to me on any of those platforms, and I will listen to every single one of them. I may not book every single one of you, and it's nothing personal, but I'm just trying to hit a certain kind of quality and attraction for where we're located and what I think my customers like. And that's what I look for.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. And, again, bands ask all the time, not just for you, but a lot of the other venues. And I'll be asking these same questions of your peers in the business, because let's face it, there are dozens, if not 100 bands in the Charlotte area that are all looking for places to play. And we've got a dozen just North Charlotte area, Lake Norman area, and everyone's trying to get their piece of the pie. And I support as much as I can. Obviously, I know you do as well, but you've got to separate yourself. This is my 2 cents. You got to separate yourself from the rest of the bands that are playing out there. Don't always play the same kind of music. Do something different on social media. Make yourself stand out and make people want to come see you. And I think that's something that would be a draw. I would hope that you would look at that differently, go, wow, these guys are really doing it right.
I would agree with that. This area is a little particular on it. This area loves songs they can sing along with.
Right.
There's some standards. There's some genres I don't think that play great up here. But other than that, doing things a little differently, put your own spin on certain songs. We have a couple of bands that play in here that play a lot of songs that we all know, but it's a trite saying, but they make it their own. They
Yeah.
put a little quirk into it or a little spin to it. And it's like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's different than what other people do. And that's interesting.
Right. I got it. Are there any bands that you're trying to get up there that you haven't been able to connect with?
Not really. If there's a band that I'm looking to book, I can find them
Yeah.
usually, or they usually find me. There are bands I would love to have that I can't swing. Yeah, that's also one of the things. I'm at a tier of quality and size and music that's not like concert venue tier. And sometimes you get people that have played here for years, and as they grow and they progress, they end up moving on to a bigger tier, and then they stop playing here, which is it's hard to not take personally.
Don't
But
forget where you started, right?
it's like, hey, remember me? But no, there's most of the bands that I know of that I'm interested in. I reach out to them. I try to get them on the schedule. I do book out. I may have 10 dates, weekend dates left this year. I try to book out majority of the year ahead of time. I have certain bands that I book every month. I have certain bands that I book 6 times a year. So I book out pretty far generally. So I don't have a lot of open dates. I will say that musicians that reach out and say, "Hey, I'm open this weekend. What do you got?" I'm like,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, I get that on the other side when you're booking bands and a venue calls and says, "What are you guys doing next weekend?" And my answer is, "I booked 2025 in September of 2024." Right?
Yeah.
We've got a dozen or so dates left, but to your point, your good venues, your good bands are going to kind of lock down to make sure that they know what's coming and leave a few holes here and there for pop-up stuff. But I get it, and
I
that's
will
the other.
tell you, I book out a year in advance, and I book out in September too. It's usually when I start. There are a couple bands I start in, they start even earlier.
Mhm.
But I book out most of my mainstays by September. I would say that speaking to musicians out there, and I can't speak for every venue, but if I book someone, that's a commitment I make to them, unless there's some extreme circumstance. Morgan Wallen wants to come and play one night, and he wants to play at Ben 110. I'm going to be like, hey, man, yeah, I'm Morgan Wallen wants to play. That's never happened yet, but if it did, but it goes the other way too, though. I've had some bands that I've booked out for the year back in September, and then I get an email that, oh, hey, we've got a conflict on this date.
Mhm.
And then I see that they're playing at another venue. I'm like, I know you didn't book them before me.
Right.
So I keep receipts of that. And there's only so many of those receipts that I can keep. Cause I keep my commitments to musicians because I know that's their livelihood and it's important to them.
Sure.
But it's really tough on me if 7 days ahead of when I've got you scheduled for live music, you back out on me with a conflict.
Sure.
So
Well, it's professionalism, and you got to
right.
treat people the way you want to be treated, right? So I'm
Right.
sure bands get a mulligan maybe, and then the second one is a little more questionable, right? But I would hope that doesn't happen too often in any situation. Again, you're right. There's always an emergency.
Sure.
Someone got sick back in the post-COVID days. You never wanted to put anybody at risk, but I think we're kind of past all that. You talked about the sound system there,
Mhm.
and I know you've been working through that. Any big plans for a stage or to make that space a little more music friendly?
So that's a good question. I think that you'll see us always continuing to try and be better at what we do, whether it's on the other side of the bar or on the customer side of the bar. We've done that a little bit on the sound. I've added some powered QSC speakers to the mix, which I think make all the difference in the world. I'm going to add another one to the mix. So I think once I have that complete set of powered speakers, they're pretty much any band that comes in here that would want to plug in to do that. And actually that I'm going to start probably demanding that in some regards, unless I have some 4 or 5 piece bands that maybe need a little more complicated setup. Because I want some quality and I want some consistency in what's offered here. And sometimes you get people that bring in equipment that's maybe a little bit lesser and the sound quality is a little bit lesser, reflects on us. And it's really not that. It's really that the system that they're using. So I want to put a quality system in they can use. I've gotten a lot of feedback on soundproofing this, that, or whatever, and I'm not opposed to that. This is a tough space. And what I try to explain to others is that this is a bar that offers live music.
Right.
It's not a live music venue that happens to have a bar.
Sure.
And so any kind of soundproofing that I would want to do, I would not want it to ruin the aesthetics of the bar because we host private parties, corporate events, ladies' nights out, a lot of things that we do here that aren't live music related as well. So I wouldn't want it to ruin the aesthetics. And I'd also want it to work
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, we have a concrete floor. We are literally in an aquarium. It's glass all around us and a metal roof. And so I don't see a scenario where I think I can cover everything.
Right.
And if I just cover some areas and it doesn't help that much, but now I've just got ugly soundproofing and I spent a bunch of money, I really don't want to do that either. So
Right.
to be honest, there are some bands that come in here that have a really good handle on their sound, and 4 or 5 piece bands play in here and it sounds great. Their volume's good. Their sound is good. They dial things in. I think the musicians that have more of an issue with our venue are people that just come in and turn the volume up and go,
Right.
wow, it's really, it's really echoey in here. Well, we're going to have to do a little work on that.
Right. Yeah. Read the room, right?
So,
Exactly.
but you'll see us continue to try and get better. I don't know that you're ever going to see us as a recording studio quality venue,
Sure.
but if I can find someone that could show me things that they could guarantee me would make a noticeable difference in sound, I would definitely explore it.
Well, maybe someone watching, a sound person, could come in. You can reach Andy at the restaurant, at the bar, 7 days a week, apparently. We're coming to the end of time. I told you this was going to go quick. Before we say goodbye, there's one other thing I want you to mention. So we've talked about the bourbon, we've talked about the music, but there's also another thing that you've been adding every couple of weeks, every month on Wednesday nights, which
So you're
is
talking about
comedy stuff.
so we started out, we reopened last January, and we started at the very beginning, February comedy night. We did the third Wednesday of every month. My friend Jesse Jones, who is also a local stand-up comic, also runs a bourbon podcast called The Bourbon Showdown. Jesse's super funny in his own right. He MCs it for me every month, and he also hires the talent. So he basically runs the comedy night because he knows all the comedians. And so we get nationally touring comedians that come in here on the third Wednesday of every month. And for $20 a person, you can sit in a very intimate setting with great drinks, great food, and hear some really funny people and not have to drive very far. I mean, one of our things people always talk about is not having to leave the bubble. We don't have to drive all the way into Charlotte to see good comics or have great drinks or good wine. We have it here. So if you haven't been to a comedy night, you really should. It's a great value and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we are at time, my friend, and I can't thank you enough for being one of the early guests of mine while I work out the kinks on this whole thing and figure out where we're going to put this and how we're going to do it and all that kind of good stuff. But I appreciate you and Tally and your friendship, and certainly wish you continued success there. And I would encourage everybody watching, make some time to get up to see bands, get up to try some of the bourbons. And definitely that wall is not a screenshot. That is actually the bar. Andy's right at the end of the bar, and that is a
And
sight to be seen. So, Andy, my friend, thank you so much for being on. And we wish you all the best. And we'll see you at the next show.
all right. Thanks, Colin.